Islamic parties aren't just in the Middle East anymore. Belgium, the country in Europe, is scheduled to hold elections in just a few months. There's a rising star in the political landscape there. It's called the Islam Party. Its stated purpose is to implement Sharia and transform Belgium into an Islamic state. Members of the Islam Party won 2 races in 2012. The party is hoping to expand its success this round. Katie Hopkins writes for Rebel Media. She has traveled to the town of Molenbeek. Lots of jihadis there. You may remember it because it was the place the 2015 Paris terrorists plotted their attack. She interviewed the town's mayor, who seems to regard its ties to jihad as a marginal issue at best. Watch.
Were you told that Salah Abdel Salah was a suspected terrorist in Molenbeek? Were you given that list? Were you given that information in October 2016? 15?
Yes. Well, we had a list, but this list was known. I just had a list of a few names. Well, I would say more than 30 names, but it was not the job of the local police to follow those people.
Not my job, she said. Katie Hopkins joins us tonight. Katie, that's unbelievable. Are we misreading that because of the language barrier? Did the mayor just say it's not her job to keep track of dangerous people in her community?
Absolutely. She's the mayor of Molenbeek. She's been there for about 6 years or so now. She was given the name and the location. He ran a bar in the town of the coordinator of the Paris attacks, where 130 were killed, 415 were maimed. And when I said to her, you had that list, you had his name, you did nothing, she said, it's not my job. It was not my job to do something. And of course, this is part of the problem in the jihadi capital of Europe, where I've just spent 3 days, is that politicians turn a blind eye because they are dependent on the voters who are Muslim and they want their support.
So it's a demographic thing. I mean, at a certain point, you become captive to the people who are changing your society.
That's absolutely right. You know, what I've just seen, I've spent 3 days walking the streets of Molenbeek. It's known as a place that other reporters won't go because it's 80% Muslim. There's a lot of Sunnis there, a lot of Salafists, a lot of Shiites, very hardcore kind of religious individuals. But you've got a triumvirate, the perfect storm of a lot of unauthorized mosques, particularly controlled by Iran, and money flowing in. You've got one type of population, 80% Moroccan heritage Muslims. And then you've got politicians and police who, I'm told by informers, are taking backhanders, who are happy to turn a blind eye. And that's why you've got terror being plotted in Belgium. But that terror then, of course, drives 2 hours away to destroy people in capital cities like London here, or indeed Paris. And bear in mind, Ramadan is just around the corner.
What do the rest of Belgium think of this? Ordinary Belgians, are they for this?
Yeah. It's so interesting. Obviously, there's a great deal of white flight. I walk through, I think you have images and stills there, the marketplace. I was the only woman with my head uncovered. Everybody there is in a burqa. The Islam Party that are putting up 28 candidates in September, they want segregated transport, segregated living, and they want halal everywhere and Sharia. And I can see it coming. So there's a massive white flight. And academics and teachers and certain individuals will tell me their truths. They will tell me there are unauthorized mosques, that the teachers are giving up hope, that people want to move out, but they don't want to be seen to be saying that because it goes against the liberal narrative. But really, these areas still exist. There's a massive mosque there, run by Saudi. It was given a 99-year free lease on a massive building in Belgium, as long as they could bring in extremist imams to have access to these migrants. And then we wonder why we end up living with the jihadis next door.
Is this a permanent situation? Are these people residents, citizens of Belgium? I mean, is it temporary?
No, it's not temporary at all. They have citizenship. 95,000 people live in Molenbeek. About 85% of them are Moroccan heritage, but they are French nationals, often Belgian born. But what's so interesting, in talking to a teacher today who didn't want to be on record, she was saying that her teaching colleagues find that no matter what, how many generations in they are, 3 generations in now, they always have one foot still in Morocco. And that's very very much the point that she made. Those old Islamic and Muslim traditions matter more than any European heritage they may have.
Amazing. Not the Belgium most of us think of. Katie Hopkins, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Tucker.
All right, so I suspect you've got a lot to say about this. Let's go with what's going on down there at the border right now with the caravan. What's your take on the caravan and what the Trump administration is doing about it?
Well, I wish Trump would just stay on the road like he was in campaign mode again, because he gets instant feedback from the crowd, and that's when he says really popular things that get Republicans elected and could possibly defend against a blue wave. But then he gets back to Washington, and he's not doing anything about the caravan. I mean, he sent out a tweet a few weeks ago saying, "Oh, don't worry. Thanks, Mexican government has stopped the caravan." And then the Daily Mail goes to Mexico and says, no, we haven't stopped the caravan. We're giving them 30-day passes, 20-day passes to make sure that they can make it to America. They're not all traveling with the caravan anymore, but they're spreading out so they can go to different access points. They are 100% still coming. All they have to do is step across the border. Oh, and they have lots of lawyers from countries without borders advising them. This is a political attack on our nation by a political group that doesn't believe nations should have borders. They're advised, they're told what to say. They step across the border, they say asylum, and that's it. They're going to get shipped in, and we'll get another round of MS-13 and another round of MS-13. I mean, Trump has a lot of power. Yeah. He was the one who was elected. It's Republicans and Congress that the American people hate. If he wants Congress to pass this law, it wouldn't be very hard. Maybe if you spend a little more time on making America great again and not working on making South Korea and China great again, he could get back to pressuring Congress to do something for the American people. And that would be pass a law saying you don't just get to step in and say, I'm claiming asylum, and then get a bus and a box lunch into America.
Thank you, Ed. All right, more and more states are legalizing pot. 9 now legalizing for recreational use, including Colorado. This, as a recent survey found the number of companies in Colorado testing for marijuana is on the decline. So is this a good idea? Here to debate, Dr. Kevin Sabet, former senior advisor for the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy under President Barack Obama, and author of the book Reefer Sanity, 7 Great Myths About Marijuana, and Caroline Phillips, founder of the National Cannabis Policy Summit. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, doctor, this is not really a debate about whether you are pro or against legalizing marijuana, but the survey showing that more companies are just opting out of testing their employers for the use of marijuana. Is that something people should be concerned about?
Well, it is. I mean, first of all, in Colorado, the construction business has had to hire out of state because they can't find people to pass a drug test. And we need people to pass drug tests who are especially in safety-sensitive positions. I don't want my pilot, my doctor, my kid's bus driver to be testing positive for marijuana. I think this is very bad news. Today's pot is so much more harmful than it used to be. THC content, which is the potency, is 10 to 30 times greater. There are all these edibles, these candies and cookies and oils. We don't need another tobacco industry. We're reeling off of big pharma because of the opiate crisis. Why in the world do we want big marijuana? I think it's a bad idea. It's terrible for American jobs and for the workforce.
Well, Caroline, critics to this say the legalizing marijuana could ultimately lead to more crimes, maybe more use of illegal drugs. But then I talk to my friends about this all the time. How is that any different than people being able to drink alcohol? Unlimited amounts of alcohol. You compare the two and you're wondering why one is totally legal and one is not.
That's absolutely true. And I think there is one thing that we should point out while talking about big alcohol. There have been major mistakes made in big alcohol and big tobacco that the cannabis industry has the opportunity to learn from. People in the cannabis industry are ready to work with state regulators to ensure that systems are put in place so that adults can consume cannabis when and where they should.
Dr. Sabet, so you look at recent polling on this, and it's because it's changed pretty quickly even over the past 10 years. A recent CBS poll shows that 6 in 10 now, majority of Americans support legalizing marijuana. You look at their poll just 6-7 years ago, it was the complete opposite. So what do you think's going on?
Actually, when you word the polling differently, you get a totally different answer. When you give people the choice of decriminalization, which is about not putting people in prison, which I agree with, for marijuana versus selling it and making an industry out of it, the decriminalization part is more popular than legalization. legalization. So actually, when you ask the yes, no, you might get that answer. The reality is alcohol is in and out of your system within 24 hours. THC is fat soluble. It stays in your system longer. You are intoxicated often after you might feel intoxicated while it's still in your system. And let me tell you something, the marijuana industry right now, they are doing this for one thing and one thing only, and that's to make money. This is about money. This is about money for a small number of people, and I don't think it ends well. I don't understand how we're shutting the door on big tobacco. You can't smoke anywhere. We're shutting the door on big opiates, and yet we're opening the door to big marijuana. It's not good for our country. It's certainly not for our kids.
Caroline, how do you respond to that?
I would counter that and say that by legalizing and regulating cannabis at the federal level, it will allow people to work hand in hand together to ensure that doctors, patients, and employers understand dosing and have a better understanding of impairment.
We've never gotten it right before. We had doctors with the opiate crisis. We had doctors being paid from big tobacco. We had the alcohol industry as well. The idea that we're going to finally regulate it and get it right.
But we also have those lessons to reflect on now.
I wish you would. The problem is that the marijuana industry is not interested in lessons or public health. They're interested in what every business is interested in, and that's money.
It's interested in building a new industry that is diverse and gives back to patients, business owners, and community. The cannabis industry is interested in community reinvestment and doing things differently than they've been done in other flawed industries.
It is an interesting debate, and we will see where this all leads to. Dr. Kevin Sabet and Caroline Phillips, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much.